said, all the way up to Galt, California, and between the Altamont and Yosemite. First company is Community Hospice Inc. That's our flagship and our core organization. Under Community Hospice, everybody goes, oh, it's just hospice. How can you do that? It's a very rewarding career. And I don't think any of us grow up and decide that we're going to work in hospice one day. And most people that come to our industry are called or driven to it in some type of way due to an experience. But that is under hospice. We have hospice, palliative care. We're starting a new revenue stream and another side business as well for our counseling services. And so that will be kicking off this summer. So more to come, and watch for that. We do a whole host of things through the Children's Bereavement Camp, I know some of you know about, and a lot of school outreach. We now outreach to 67 schools throughout our community, and we go on site a little bit still right now. Mostly that's converted over to virtual platforms, assisting not only the students, but also the family. Our second company is called Community Hospice Foundation. It is a separate company with a separate board, and it is our fundraising arm. So the purpose of that organization is to raise awareness, provide education, and to raise money for the programs and services of Community Hospice Inc. And then we also have CHI Management, and that's our management arm, where a lot of our in-house IT department, HR department, all of those, just the back office, they're actually paid under that. But we also operate 7 thrift stores throughout the Central Valley from Turlock to Stockton. And we have a major logistics center where all of our recycling is done. And I wish I could, just did a big report about how many pounds, a ton of recycling that we process this year. Our recycling center has actually been selected as has received the recycling award for the city of Modesto for medium-sized businesses the last 8 years in a row. So you can imagine the amount of items that go through there. So that's another whole building that we have down at in the airport district. But like I said earlier, I did not grow up and say, okay, I'm going to work in hospice one day. And that was my passion. Actually, I'm an accounting finance type of person. And my passion was always to be an accountant, hopefully for an acute hospital. And that didn't work out, because when I graduated, top of my class in high school, I didn't have the opportunity to go to college at the time. And I immediately started working. I'd always had little summer jobs and stuff like that. But I was born in New Orleans, and actually born on Fat Tuesday. So yes, I'm a huge Mardi Gras fan. Anybody ever want to go to Mardi Gras, look me up. I'll show you how to do it. So, but when I was a young teenager, we moved to the country in South Mississippi. So I went from a metro area about the age of 12 to a farm where the closest house was over a mile away. And we were very agricultural, and we had cows and everything else. So I had to learn to play with my sisters because there wasn't anybody else around. I had to learn to ride a school bus. And that was quite a cultural shift, and one that is very hard for a young teenager to overcome. I had a strong New Orleans accent, so all the kids picked on me at school because of that accent. But after I graduated from high school, I went to work in a law office, knew that I was as good at that type of skill, just trying to, support myself, and had the opportunity to work for a group of great lawyers that took me under their wing. And I later went on to work for a state senator, had the opportunity to work for him, and really trained me in paralegal skills without having those, without having a certification like many places require today. And so I worked for him for a number of years, and then I had the opportunity, I met someone, and we decided that we were going into the retail business. And so we had a string of small, about 1,500 square foot gift shops. It wasn't floral, it was artificial plants. We did a lot of arrangements and things like that. And from that, I had a great learning experience because we started with these small stores. Then we decided that we would franchise those stores. And I had never knew anything about franchising. but kind of learned my way through of that because I wrote the franchise manuals for all of our franchises and actually sold franchises. I went out and did their setup and put all their processes in place for them, provided all their suppliers for them and everything. And as that grew, then we decided that we would open another type of retail store, which is like a Michael's or a Hobby Lobby type of store. So we opened those were called Decorate. And so we opened that store and then decided that we would just manufacture our own and bring in the raw materials. So I learned how to import goods from India and Taiwan and a lot of different places and how to get things through customs. And this was really just kind of a learning experience through. And I think it's real important that, you know, all types of experiences come up in life and you're like, I can't do that. I don't know how to do that. But I think just jumping in and going, okay, well, I'm going to figure this out. And the key is not to let anybody know that you don't know what you're doing, right? Until you figure it out. And that has served me well. Not that I've ever lied or cheated, and I'm a very ethical person. Everybody knows I'm such a rule follower. But it was a great way for me to really expand some of my skills and really start learning some leadership skills. I learned negotiation skills through that. And yes, I made mistakes and I got my nose bloodied a few times. But I always think it's important to learn from those mistakes. And today we are who we are from our life experience. So we were running a commercial division, a manufacturing division, a set of stores, another store, and franchise operation at the time. And when an importer from Taiwan came along and wanted to buy the businesses, I was more than happy to sell at that moment because that's all I had done. Didn't have a life. I was working 7 days a week. And so I took a couple of months off and then I got married and decided to have children. And we moved out of Memphis, Tennessee, back down to the South. And I was a stay-at-home mom for a little while. I had the opportunity for a short time to work as an orthopedic sales rep where I'd go in the ORs with total joints, knees, shoulders. Actually got to observe and advise on an ankle one time, total ankle replacement. So I've had a whole lot of variety of things going on. Went back and did a little bit of law work. And then suddenly one day I found myself alone with two very small children, one still in a crib, and nobody would hire me. Nobody would hire me with all that experience other than just to work as a legal secretary because I didn't have certifications and I didn't have a piece of paper behind my name. And waking up and realizing that I was now going to be the sole provider for my daughters, and I wanted them to have every opportunity as well, like we do, all of us that are parents. We want to give them every opportunity. I decided that I was going to have to go back to school, and how was I going to do that with them very little and needing to work and provide for them, and how to make all that work. I lived in a town that I didn't have any family, and the closest family was a mile away. So it wasn't like I had sitters across or down the street somewhere to help me out through this process. So one day, this was in August, and I woke up and I said, you know what, I'm going to enroll in college. I drove down to we had two major universities and a couple of junior colleges where I lived. And I drove to one of the universities and I walked into the admission office and I said, I want to enroll for class. And they said, okay. And when I walked out of there, I was enrolled with a full schedule. They had scholarship to cover my monies. My tuition, and I had to take the GMAT. And I thought, well, okay, how do I take the GMAT? So I signed up for the GMAT. I took the GMAT before the end of the week, before my materials came, so I could start class the following week. And so I started with an undergrad in business administration with a concentration in accounting. At that point, I still thought that my goal was to work acute care hospitals, and that was my avenue. I had a wonderful professor, almost talked me into getting my PhD in teaching, and through that experience, I put in 2 years of education, completed a 4-year degree. At one time, I was going to 3 universities at the same time to accomplish that, and graduated with a 4.0. So it was the top of the class, received a little medal, all that kind of stuff. And I was exhausted. And so I was working part-time, and every part-time job I could get that would work when my kids were asleep. And many nights with one in my lap and trying to write papers at the same time. So we all do what we've got to do. And sometimes getting pushed with our backs against the wall is the best thing that can happen to some of us, because it really makes you evaluate, what you can do and show how strong that you really are. I do have to say that I have very strong parents that encouraged me, but they didn't help me, hands-on help me, but they gave me a lot of encouragement. You can do this. I started working full-time for a regional healthcare provider in their accounting department because I didn't want to move at the time with my girls had started school. One of them had started school, and I didn't want to upset too much of the apple cart. They'd really just gone through a whole lot. So I worked for them, and then they came to me and they said, we need somebody to be HIPAA privacy laws came along. And we had offices in Louisiana, Mississippi, and Florida. And they needed somebody to be a privacy officer. And I said, I don't know anything about privacy, but of course I hopped in, I read the rules, went to class, wrote the policies, procedures, wrote educational materials, and did speaking engagements in Florida, Louisiana, and Mississippi to healthcare providers that needed to learn about HIPAA privacy. So I continued to work for them. And while I was getting ready to leave there and move on into the hospital realm, they came to me and they said, we want to start a hospice division. And I said, no, my grandfather died on hospice 9 months ago, and it was a horrible experience, and I won't have anything to do with it. And I said, I'm not a nurse. And they said, we don't want a nurse, and we need somebody operational, and you have that kind of operation experience. So I said no, and they begged me to really kind of reconsider. So I do what I do, and I pulled every regulation and information I could find about the hospice industry. And I took the entire week and studied and read every night, and went back to them on Friday. And I said, I will do it, but there are going to be certain criteria, and you cannot, you can't stop me for these. And the first criteria was that we will be there for every patient and family when they need us, because that's not what we had in our family. We were left alone in our hospice experience. So from there, I dug in and I answered phones in a couple of my first offices and hired nurses and wrote policies, wrote regulations, figured out how to do forms. I'm now a certified hospice and palliative care administrator as well. Got some other certifications to go along with that. But you just, you learn through trial and error. So I opened one office and got my feet a little bit wet, and then opened a second office for them. And then there was a moratorium that was put on hospice licenses inside the state of Mississippi at the time. After I'd done some further growing and some new markets there for them, that you couldn't open a hospice, a new license, without having any more new licenses were not going to be issued for hospices. That's what they put across the region. But there was a loophole that I found in that I could take that office and then open a branch off of that office, and then ask the state to convert it to a permanent office, and then expand the 50-mile radius from that. So I had the director of the Mississippi Department of Health and Public Services call me one time, and got to know him very well, and said, I've got another application on my desk, and how are you doing this? We're under moratorium. I said, it was a branch office, I can convert it, and you're still allowing me to do that. So I took over just about the entire state of Mississippi, except for the upper Delta region, opened a couple offices in Louisiana, expanded into Atlanta, Georgia, skipped Alabama for a lot of industry reasons that were going on at the time in Alabama, a lot of fraud, and didn't want to play in that game. And so when I left there to come to Modesto, was operating 14 offices, either through startups, acquisitions, or mergers that I was able to do, and put those regs, or there's federal regs and there's state regs, and then there's Medicaid regs and everything else, or Medi-Cal for here. Put all of that in place and really grow it as a senior leadership team. And I had an administrator in each one of those offices, and they were off-site, and really learned how to kind of lead and manage without having somebody underfoot. I think I started out as really a micromanager, thinking that I needed to do it all, that nobody could do it like I could do it. And, I can do it better, or by the time I explain it to you, I can already have it done. Well, that's fine and good, but that's not teaching anybody to stabilize and build a strong foundation for the organization. So I left them in really good shape when I came here. And one of the things on my resume that really gave me a leg up for this role was that I'd had that retail experience. And there's one organization here that we have 7 thrift stores. I closed one since I came and opened 2 since I've been here. And then I opened a branch office for them as well. Um, there's a saying by Walt Disney, and everybody's going to go, oh, Walt Disney, it's going to be cheesy. But we all hear all our dreams come true. But what we don't hear, the last part of that is if you have the courage to pursue them. And I like to put my own little spin on Walt Disney's quote to say, if you want to be successful and achieve your goals, you have to have the courage to pursue them. And that doesn't matter whatever you are doing or whatever that passion is that you have, is that you can achieve those goals. I raised my girls by myself. I'm still a single mom, and they have finished undergrads and they have finished their masters. And I have a CPA in Houston, Texas, and one trying to get into med school on the other side. Those were their passions. Those aren't my passions. As a matter of fact, I've tried to discourage the one from going to med school, and she's not listening to me, but that's okay. That's what her passion is. She has such a love for the medical field. And working in it, I'd love to see her do something different, but that's her life. Through all of those experiences, I've learned a lot and I've grown up a lot. We all start out green somewhere. We really do. And I have a great senior leadership team of 9 individuals that some of them are green and young, and some of them are more experienced. So I have a great balance of gender as well as maturity levels. And I've taken a couple of them under my wing. I've just about got one of them there, and then really working on one of my other newer managers that we promoted up. I think a good leader what makes a good leader is being a mentor in your organization and really realizing that you don't have to be the smartest guy in the room. Somebody said that you need to surround yourself with great, talented people. I learned that the hard way. So try to do that when you're younger, and it will serve you very, very well. Most people are intimidated by that. I was quite intimidated when I thought, oh, I'm going to hire somebody and I think they know more than I do. And that was a little scary for me at first. But then you get yourself in a different position to where you can take a step back. And I do a lot of self-reflection. Even when I misstep today, I'm going to go home and I'm going to think that through, how I could have done that better all night. I promise you, because I want to do it better the next day. So I'm also a firm believer in being a lifelong learner and a lot of self-reflection. And I just challenge each one of you that if you don't have a personal statement for you, your own personal statement, sort of like a company has their mission, vision, and values. If you don't have organizations, we do it all the time for organizations, and we spend time on lots of money on developing, mission statements and value statements and everything else. But if you will really take some time, and there's some great tools on the internet to really assess where you want to be and what that end goal is for you. When my life sort of derailed, my goal at the time was just trying to survive and keep my family fed and clothed and housed. That was all my goal was at the time. So our goals change throughout life, and that's okay. But, and as things change in your life, it may, some of you may always stay in the same career and the same career path that you've always been, but don't be afraid to always look if opportunity comes knocking. That's not in your field of expertise. Have that courage, step out, at least investigate it before you absolutely say no. And I credit the father and son that I worked for. It was a private organization back in South Mississippi that really gave me free reign to do whatever. I was on vacation in Tampa, Florida, with my girls in the car, and we were going to Busch Gardens. We'd been to Walt Disney World, and we were going to Busch Gardens, driving over, and he called me while I was in downtown Tampa trying to figure out where to go. And this was before the time of GPS and everything else. And so he called and he said, a hospital is called and they need a contract for something, but I have no clue what they're talking about and what they need. And that was the president of the company. And I said, okay, can I get where I need to get? And I will call you back and I'll walk you through it. But I had developed that level of trust with them that stems from the integrity that I have about myself and that I always represent, but always require out of my staff as well. Um, uh, and then, teach him along. I wasn't going to talk down to him. He just didn't know. He was busy doing other things. Lastly, I just want to end with when I came here, one of my greatest achievements, people ask me this sometimes, what is your greatest achievement at your current organization? And I'll say the culture of the organization. When I came to Modesto, this culture we're an old 42-year-old nonprofit community hospices, the mothership, basically. And the culture just had an opportunity to get a little wonky and not where many people wanted to work. And it's not what I was used to, and it's not what I wanted in an organization, and not a place that I would want to work. So it took me some years, and I took a little flack for some of my decisions that I made and I lost some staff in order to turn this culture around in our organization. And I had board members that were asking me, oh gosh, and I said, you just got to trust me. Just trust me on this. I know it's going to work out. We're doing the right thing, because we were doing the right thing for the right reason. And so we have been selected as one of the best places to work in the Central Valley the last 4 years, I believe. And that takes a lot of work across 3 very diverse organizations to get them all on board. And if you would have felt the culture that I walked into, you would know why I'm so proud of that accomplishment. And culture isn't something you put in place and then you stick it on the shelf, check the box and go, okay, I got it. It's something that you have to work at all the time within the organization, and it stays on our strategic plan all the time. And a lot of the senior leaders, they rely on me to lead our company culture. And I push back and I say, no, I said, I may just be sitting in this chair, but company culture is everybody's responsibility around the table. So wherever you are, just please keep that in mind, that it is everybody's responsibility around the table. I love doing what I do. I have a great team of senior leadership, of team members, and I love watching them grow into strong leaders and making great decisions and hiring decisions. And I don't micromanage. I ask them to bring me your suggestions, want your feedback. And I think that was the best lesson I learned as a leader, is to don't worry about being the smartest person in the room. Rely on others that have that knowledge, and be more of a mentor and the person that encourages and give them that focus for the organization. Most people in the organizations, they have tunnel vision. They lead a department, that's what they see, that's what their focus is. They can't see all the other departments. And work on developing a global vision in your industry, not just in your organization, but also in your industry. And when you become a visionary leader, you will have so much to be proud of, and your life will be a little less stressful. I promise you, it is, when you get people surrounded around you. There's a lot of great talent in this area. You just have to find them out there. They are there. So I don't know if that's really what you wanted me to share with everybody, but I do want to say one last thing, is that I told you I run 3 separate organizations, and Sally works for herself, and she has the benefit that she doesn't have to report up to anybody. But sometimes in organizations, we wear more than one hat, right? Or we have other people that are involved in our decision making, or that we have to report to, or influences whether we're going to stay employed with that organization or not. And so, just take and learn from them as well, if they're good leaders in your organizations. I actually report to 3 separate boards. So I say I have a little over 40 bosses every day of the week. And so if anybody ever needs help juggling bosses in some type of way, and board development, and I have to do a lot of work with our boards and keep them engaged, or keep them out of the getting in the weeds of our business. That's a whole nother discussion. But anyway, appreciate where you are today and write your personal statements. Set that self for you to help set your course, regardless of what industry you're going to be in. You can determine your own path if you just take the time and do a little bit of research, really some self-reflection. And I hope that will serve you well. So.
Fantastic. Thank you, Deshay. Talk about well-rounded. How old were your girls when you moved here?
My youngest one was starting her senior year in high school when I moved here, and we had to make the very difficult decision whether she moved or she stay there. And because I still didn't have any family there, and her sister was away at Ole Miss, when she went to Ole Miss the following year, and knew that was going to happen. I had a couple of great family friends, and something that we, when you work in a town that has medical centers and universities, people are moving in and out all the time. But she moved in with one of her friends who was a good friend of mine and lived with them that year. So yeah, so then I had one living with a friend and one in college, and I moved this way. And now we're in 3 separate states, but we make it work.
Did they ever
Other
join
than I had the unfortunate event to go visit with them. They insisted last minute, right before last weekend. Mom, please come to Houston. Let's do some things. I've got dinner reservations and everything else. So the youngest drove over from Mississippi and I flew to Houston, and then I got stuck there 4 days longer than I wanted to because of the ice. We slept cold a few nights, I will tell you that, with no power and no heat, but we made it.
Did either of them ever join you here for a bit of time?
I'm sorry?
Did either of them ever join you here, live with you here for a little bit?
No, but they love to come visit Mom, because for them, it's almost like being on vacation. We go hiking, we get, it's this wine event that's happening here. And, we love to go wine tasting and riding bikes over in Napa and wine tasting. So yeah.
Awesome. Very cool.
They're great.
You're a little older when you moved here than I was picturing from your story. So yeah, that's
right.
Interesting timing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, fantastic. So I'd love to just open it up. Anyone have any either comments, feedback, insights you learned that you want to share, or just general questions for all those different roles and timeframes that Deshay has shared with us? Lou?
Yeah, I had more of a question, just to know kind of how community hospice, how the COVID-19 pandemic impacted that. I know you're in charge of 3 different components of it, and how that tested your leadership.
You know what? I will tell you how it most tested my leadership is because, that happened overnight. We had to shut our stores down overnight. So I called my senior leadership team, reached out to all of them, and I said, this was on a Thursday evening. And I said, let's meet at 9:00. And we were on the phone till with some of the stores, because I had to close those immediately the next day and figure out a plan for that. So I was on the phone till about 1 a.m. working all that out. And the first response is from my senior leadership team, just about all of them, was one of panic. It's like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? And they looked to me and they said, Deshay, you've been through hurricanes and floods and everything else, which tornadoes, from that side of the country. I had to work through all those emergencies in Atlanta with ICE or whatever it was, with our patients. And I said, well, the first thing we're not going to do is we're not going to panic. We're going to take one thing at a time, and we're going to first evaluate what are our options. What are we going to do? Are we going to shut down? We had to make the decision whether we were going to lay off or furlough all of our store people, which is about, almost 90 individuals. And it would break my heart for them to be without a job. We made the decision. I wanted to furlough them. So we furloughed that staff. It took a lot of not really anything that was specific, but my job really came encouraging and keeping my senior leaders and my managers stood up, if that makes any sense to you, because they were just panicked beyond belief. How are we going to do this? And I said, well, we're not going to solve it all tonight, and we're going to take it as it comes. And of course, things constantly change. And it actually has been a great learning lesson for them because they're a lot more flexible as leaders. Some of them still get a little panicky about some things, but my job is to keep them focused on at hand. And I started giving them tasks to do. And I said, okay, you focus on this, go figure this out, and you work on this, and you figure out the technology and give everybody Zoom and, now let's set up the training. So keeping them busy help try to keep them from getting in their heads and staying in that panic mode. So, yeah. So we make a lot of televisits. We're getting back into some of our facilities. We just had to adapt and made sure that everybody wear a mask every day and close our doors, and all of our clinicians, we had to find PPE, and I'm on the internet on the weekend looking for gowns and gloves and everything else to get our staff back out there. So yeah, that's kind of how we managed through it. Mm-hmm.
To say, out of your 3 organizations, what percentage of your staff in each is back now compared to when it started?
All of our staff are back in all 3 of our organizations. Our stores are open. When we reopened our stores, they were always open 7 days a week. And I know they've been having some staffing challenges, and they're like, we can't get to this, we can't get to that. So we made the decision to close them on Sunday. I said, close them on Sunday. And that has really helped the morale of the staff in our stores. While our stores were closed and we rely on that revenue from our stores, people were calling us saying, are you taking donations? Are you taking donations? And so I met with my director of retail operations, and I said, our phones are ringing off the wall, people wanting us to pick up, or where can they drop off their donations? Because everybody's home and they're cleaning out their closet. So we set up a couple of donation trucks in our parking lot out front, and we put it on social media and said, it was just a drop-off location. Please just come by and drop them off here. And before we got our stores back open in June, it got to where some days we were filling up 2 trucks a day with people just dropping off stuff. Now, keep in mind that's wonderful for us, because our inventory, we don't have a cost of goods sold, really. So that all those donations, that's the inventory that goes on the sales floor. So we were really appreciative that we were able to pivot and make an adjustment and find a way to meet the people's needs. And I think that's what's important. You really kind of have to think outside the box in crazy terms like that.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else?
No, I just wanted to say I love hearing your story, Deshay, and I agree with so much of what you say. And, just congratulations for where you are in life.
Thank you. Thank you. Looking back, you're like, how did I do undergrad and then master's and raise a family and get them to school, and they were fed and clothed? And I'm old school to where I believed in still getting up and cooking breakfast, from scratch for my girls every morning. All of that's a blur. I know I did it, but I'm not sure how I accomplished it. But you do what you got to do, and you do it for the love. And then you happen to find yourself in an industry that really you become very passionate about. And I can talk about community hospice all day long, just because, and the work that our great staff does, and the wonderful people that I get to meet, and people that reach out. They will stop me in the grocery store if they see me, if I have a jacket on with a logo on it or see my badge, and everybody wants to tell me their story of their loved one being on hospice. I love to go out to the hospice house and sit with the patients and just hold their hand, while they're sleeping. That's something very rewarding in the work that we do. It's not depressing at all. Now, if you see me in a restaurant and I'm having a business meeting with one of my staff and we're talking about deaths and, oh my goodness, or deaths, or, it sounds a little callous in that, because there's definitely a business side to every nonprofit. And if you think there's not a business side to every type of industry, nonprofit or for-profit, doesn't make a difference. There has to be a business side of what we do in order for me to meet our budget and make sure that we stay in operation, another 42 years. That's my job, is to make sure I set the organizations up for another 42 years.
Anyone else have something they'd like to add or ask?
I think it's a boring story.
It is not a boring story. I will tell you one thing that happened at my house is we started cleaning stuff out in the last 6 months. So I've been a frequent flyer to your location on McHenry.
Thank you. I always say, please donate and please shop us. I have found some great finds in some of our stores.
No doubt. So I
Yeah.
have one question that was sent in to me. Let's see, what is the best advice you can give someone who switched to a completely different career?
The best advice, I would hope that was a choice, that you made a career switch by a choice. And you know what? See, don't completely leave the past behind. Take what you learned from the past and apply that to the present and just move forward and just put your whole heart and soul into it. You know, if I hope it's a career that you're very passionate about and you love doing it. And if so, just give it 110%. You know, I almost eat, sleep, and breathe what I do. And yeah, so there's all skills that you can pull from in your past. And that's my best advice, I guess, off the top of my head.
That was great. I think you're one of those workaholic type people too. Always active, always going, right?
You know, when I'm bringing on, especially a senior leader here, or interviewing, bringing somebody into the team, I recruited away a lady from one of the organizations locally here to be my chief clinical officer, because I needed somebody really strong. And I just met her a couple of times, but I could just tell she's who I needed. I needed to get her. And I promised her, I said, one thing I can promise you, I can't promise you much, but I can promise you that you will never be bored in your role. And then when I brought on a new CFO, I gave them the same promise, and a new director of HR, and they hold me and they remind me of that promise. They said, yep, we are never bored with you around, because if something is working, then that's great. We're going to expand, and we're going to start a new service line, or we're going to do something in order to make sure that we sustain community hospice.
Yeah, absolutely. So great. Well, we're going to take the last few minutes and give you an opportunity, if there's something that Deshay said that sparked a thought or a similarity that you'd like to share. It's open mic, feel free to do so. And if you would be interested in being one of our highlights in the next month or two, please let Felicia or I know. We'd be happy to engage with you in that way. The whole point is every story is different, so there's something to learn from everything. So anyone's welcome to share in that sense. And if you would like to drop your email address in the chat, Felicia will pull that out for you. And the couple of documents that Deshay referred to, she'll make a point of emailing them to you. That's kind of a platform that was created to build this group on going forward. I will take a moment to call out Scott, in that he joined us a little late and didn't have an opportunity to introduce himself. Would you like to tell us where you work and what you do?
Yeah, hey guys, I'm Scott Pernice. I work at the Modesto Gospel Mission. I recognize a couple faces in here. So to those of you who I know, hello. I'm the Director of Development, so I'm in charge of fundraising, marketing, anything in between. Lately, also throw into that community service events as well. Been with the mission for going on 2 years this year. I love it. I've been doing development work since 2016. Went from a traditional sales job over to development, and I won't turn back. I love asking people for money. It's a lot of fun. So
That's a skill set of its own, especially if you like it.
Not everybody can do that.
No, and not feel good about it if they're doing it.
yeah. So is that?
You know, I
anything else?
do not have, that is not one of my strongest skills, is asking people for money.
Yeah.
But I have great people that are great at it. So,
I've met a few of them.
Yeah, Melissa, you probably know Melissa. She's my executive director for the foundation, and she's also president, I believe, of the AFP this year as well.
Yes,
Mhm.
which I'm a part of as well.
Yes. Good.
It's very cool. Well, very good. So as Deshay said, we will meet again 4 weeks from today, February being what it is, same date, same time, different month. That's the only thing that'll be different next month. And again, would be happy to have you share what we're doing and where we're headed and what we're wanting to grow and build on here, and invite others to attend with you. Watch for our e-blast to come out, and on the chamber website, you can always find now the pre-registration link on the community or chamber calendar there. And we're looking for highlight speakers. So not so much I'm training, but just sharing a highlight of your trajectory in career from where you started to where you are today. Doesn't really matter at which stage or point, there's something for everyone else to learn from. So other than that, I was really happy to see you all today and look forward to the next time.
Join us. I promise one day we will get together and have some fun too.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
bye.
Thank you. See you
Thanks
Bye.
for
soon.
joining us, guys. Have a
Thank
great
you.
afternoon.
Thank you.